So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight.
Hi, this is Joe from American Timelines. I had reached out to Tubby Johnston, the first girl to play Little League Baseball in 1950. She's 84 years young, living near Sacramento, California, and she agreed to do an interview with us. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to put this out as kind of a little special mini episode. Interviewing her really felt a lot like an episode of The Grand Project, which a friend of mine, Kitty Janvrin, does, a podcast she does where she interviews her grandparents and other friends and family's grandparents about their wonderful lives, things you don't know about. And if you take a moment to talk to somebody who's lived a long life, you'll find out that they've got great stories and that they're really endearing to hear on The Grand Project. And so I decided this would be a great time to cross over with Kitty's podcast. So you can hear the entire interview with Tubby Johnston on The Grand Project. But here's a little sneak peek of it, a little mini episode of American Timelines where we highlight our 1950 Person of the Year, K. Tubby Johnston, who was the first girl to ever play Little League Baseball. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you check out The Grand Project.
Joe, this is my husband, Cy.
Hi, Cy.
Hello,
Joe.
Great to see you and meet you. I feel like I already know you from watching the audio story lab.
Yeah.
So I already feel like I know you guys, but thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. And you'll be my Person of the Year for 1950. But I also wanted to ask you up front, are you okay with using this interview for another potential podcast? A friend of mine started over the pandemic. She had lost her grandmother, and she really regretted not interviewing her grandmother or talking to her more about her life. So she started a new podcast called The Grand Project, where she interviews all of her grandparents and her friends' grandparents and anybody's grandparents just about their lives, and because they've led these amazing lives that nobody talks to them about. And so it's a really, really sweet, endearing podcast that kind of gets your hearts going. And then you also hear from these amazing people who have done amazing things. And so I mentioned you to her, even though you're not any of our grandparents. You're someone's grandparents, I'm sure. And you've got such an amazing story that if you didn't mind if I share the interview with her and she would put it on her podcast as well.
That'd be fine, yeah.
That's so
nice. But
nice.
don't tell, Kay and I are not grandparents, unfortunately.
Oh,
we have 3 grown children,
okay.
Never married, no kids, so
okay.
we have that.
Okay, that's okay.
We have the problem of having no kids.
Well, you know what? So on the Zoom call, Kay and Cy's daughter, Kathy, decided to hold her small dog up to the camera to prove that they are grandparents.
Just show you.
There's the grandkid right there. That's a grandbaby. That's a beautiful grandparent. That's the best kind to have. Well, then we can be, if you're okay with that, we'll be your grandchildren for this purpose.
Sounds good.
It's the best way to get your story out there then. So anyway, thank you so much I can't believe you got back to me and you're so gracious with your time. I'm really appreciative. In 1950, Kathryn Johnston wanted to play Little League, but an unwritten rule kept girls from trying out. So she cut off her hair and tried out as a boy under the nickname Tubby, and she made the team and changed Little League Baseball forever. You can hear about this story in Anybody's Game. Kathryn Johnston, the first girl to play Little League, picture book that was published on March 1st, 2018. It's available on Amazon by Heather Lang with pictures by Cecilia Pulesi. Hopefully that's how I say it. And today we have Miss Kathryn Johnston here with us. Kathryn, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with listeners of independent podcasts like American Timelines and The Grand Project. I really appreciate your time. So let's go ahead and start with the story. It was 1950, and girls weren't allowed to play baseball, right?
Well, that's right. It was an unwritten rule that girls would not play Little League Baseball. Rules were set up for boys and boys only. So, actually, I didn't cut my hair. My mother did. I was sitting in the kitchen crying because my brother had gone off to Little League practice for the kid, and I wanted to go. And he said, "You can't. You're a girl." So I for months I'd ask my father, "Why wasn't I born a boy? Boys can do everything and girls can't." And then there should be no reason why a girl with athletic ability just as good as boys, if not better, could not play Little League Baseball. So when about 2 weeks later, but Corning, New York had extended the Little League Baseball conference to include 2 more teams. And I saw this as my opportunity to sort of bully my way into the Little League baseball club thing. So, and my mother said, "Oh, why don't you just go try out?" I said, "How can I try out with these long braids?" So she cut off the braids, and then I tucked the rest of my hair under my brother's cap and put on some of his clothes, and I took my bicycle and rode. Now, this was in a different area of Corning. It's called Riverside, and there, nobody knew who I was. Plus, we had been in Bradford, Pennsylvania for 3 years before we went to Corning.
Oh, okay.
And so when they didn't require birth certificates, their names. So I asked my mother, I don't know what to call myself. And she said, "Well, you're always reading Little Lou and Tubby comic books like this."
Yeah, that's a picture of Tubby.
And like this.
The character from Little Lulu.
So
Yeah.
that's where I got the name Tubby. And I
He's
thought,
talking.
No, keep going. You're good. You're good. I'm just adding a little bit in. Yeah, I was just narrating for podcast listeners what you were holding up, and that you actually held up a Little Lulu comic with Tubby on there, the character that you named yourself after.
do you want me to show
No,
them?
that's okay. He saw it. Okay,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Continue, please. That's great.
Good, continue.
Oh, okay. Well, so I signed up as you know, Tubby Johnston. Now, back then, not everyone made a Little League team. As today's philosophy is no player left behind.
Right.
But then, I had about 3 or 4 practices. And when the coach decided who, would make the team, he called out Tubby Johnston would play first base. And I was absolutely ecstatic. I almost started screaming, but I
Yes.
didn't want to let anyone know who I was,
Yes.
that I was a girl.
That's so funny.
So anyway, it was absolutely phenomenal that I made the team. I was a good player, and I was sort of undercover for a while until I was so uneasy playing, making believe I was a boy that I finally had to talk to my coach.
So that's one thing that
it.
yeah, thank you. That's great so far. I have a couple more questions. So one, I wanted to ask you about the name Tubby, and you answered most of my questions. So your mom suggested that you're reading all those cartoons, so you picked Tubby. So Tubby wasn't necessarily your favorite character.
Was Tubby your favorite character?
It was in the Little Lulu and Tubby series. Yeah. So
So did you thought
picked
Tubby
out
was
that name?
You thought
and
Tubby
it
was
sounded like a boy. So
Oh, yeah.
I was tiny. I was just a little tiny thing. So it didn't make any difference if I called myself Tubby or
so
because I
that's
wasn't a Tubby.
you weren't Tubby. That's funny. So that's what I kind of wanted a clarification on was. So it wasn't your mom trying to suggest that you were Tubby or anything like that.
Oh no!
But you were a little girl, small kid. So even funnier that your name was Tubby.
You're a little girl. You weren't fat.
Oh no! I was tiny. I was a little. I think I was about 4'10" and about 75 or 80 pounds.
Okay, so I did a little reading on Tubby, and I saw that Tubby a lot of times he sort of headed up the No Girls Allowed club in those comic books. So I think it's funny and ironic
Yeah, no,
that he wanted no
yeah,
girls allowed, and you were the first girl to play baseball using his name.
yeah. What happened? Even though my going out there on the field and playing, really changed the history for Little League. It was also, and it opened, it gave a voice for all little girls for Little League, but it also was a catalyst for what they call the Tubby Rule. And the Tubby Rule came out in 1951 saying no girls under any circumstances will play Little League baseball. And it wasn't until, I think it was 1974, when the Now organization jumped in with Maria Pepe and changed so that girls could play baseball. But actually, what Lance Van Auken, who was the vice president of Little League, told me that it inspired people Little League to start softball. And that's actually why softball started, because then girls could really play. But there were some girls that played Little League baseball, too.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, thank you for that. That was something I was going to mention, but that helps that you covered that. That by 1974, they did change the rule and they got rid of the Tubby rule. So, are you surprised that it took that long, since 1951 to 1974?
Well, I actually didn't know that there was a rule that girls could not play. And I knew that girls couldn't play, but I didn't know that it was an unwritten rule. And so realized that it took 22 years or whatever to change that rule. But in the meantime, I was going to school, went to college, became a nurse. And so, I was busy myself.
Yeah, you were too busy to even consider yourself. Oh, and thank you for being a nurse, and thank you for your service. I think the healthcare workers don't get enough credit, so I just want to put that there. Thank you for that. So I also wanted to ask you, so you didn't tell, even after you made the team, a lot of your teammates had no idea you were a girl for some time, and the coach. How many games did you play before you told the coach?
How many games did you play before you told the coach?
Actually, I played in 3 games, and then I talked to the coach, and I said, I need to tell you something, because the kids started saying, is your name really Tubby? And people were making fun of me at the games, pushing me down, and so that's when I told him. I said, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. And he looked and he sort of smiled and he said, well, we don't have rules for girls, and you're such a good player, we'd like to just keep you on the team.
Oh, that's groundbreaking for a coach in that era, I think, to do that.
Oh, exactly.
Unbelievable. Yes. So what a great, that, I think that coach, what was that coach's name?
Coach Dumas.
Coach Dumas. Okay. Well, good for Coach Dumas. That's a very progressive thing to do in 1950. So other kids figured it out before the coach, right? So he probably had no idea you were a girl, but the other kids figured it out and started bullying you, like kids on other teams, right?
Did the other kids figure you were a girl?
Well, we told
the coach.
It was only after we told them. No.
Oh, okay.
My team members accepted it, and they were very gracious. However, the people on the other teams called me names. They called me it, and one person when he was out at first base, because I played first base, and when he was out at first base, he pushed me down, and I didn't get hurt, but I was mentally upset that he would go that far.
Yeah.
However, the next time he got up to bat, he hit a ball out in center field, and I remember my sportsmanship. And so when he ran around first base, I tripped him. So, which isn't the best thing to do. However, I just didn't mean to get even, but I did.
Yeah.
They gave him second base anyway.
That's great. That's great. And that, give him second base. That's a little bit to give up to make it, to feel good a little bit. And I think anybody would have done that or more in your situation. I think that's a great story. I wanted to ask you, what else do I want to ask? So the kids on your team were very accepting, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's really neat. But didn't you say, I think you told me that parents, like the rest of the year after you told your coach, he made it clear to everyone. It wasn't a secret anymore that you were a girl. So parents of other team members started booing, right, when they'd announce you or when you'd start the game?
Were the other teams booing you when you played?
Oh, the other teams did, yes. In fact, I remember at one game, it's funny, I remember at one game, the coach on another team put this huge person in the pitch. And I don't know if he was older or what, but I don't think he was really a team member. I think they made him one. I don't know for sure. But my dad came running out on the field and took me off. He didn't want me to bat against this pitcher because he was sure the pitcher was going to hit me with a ball. So, but I was up there with the bat ready to go. I mean, I've always been a determined person. And like my brother said, that's why Dad called you bonehead, because you never knew when to stop. And
so you weren't afraid of these, even though they were doing this, but other teams would get upset because you were so good and better than their boys sometimes, you think?
Right.
Wow.
I thought I was better. And, I started batting in seventh position. And after playing for a little while, they moved me up to third position.
Oh, my gosh. Third position. That's the powerhouse. That's almost cleanup. That's a great position to be in. So that means you were definitely good, if not better than most of the other boys. I love that. And so with I'm trying to understand your dad's situation. Being a father myself now, trying to imagine if I would be the same, or if I would be similar to your father and with my daughter. I have no idea, but I know if other parents were booing my daughter, I don't know if I'd be able to handle that. So was your dad or your parents, did they get into it with other parents? Were there fights in the stands? Like, was there was your brother on your team, and was he fighting too? Like when people would pick on you?
My brother was on the Knights of Columbus, and after I made the team called King's Dairy, shortly afterwards, he transferred over there so that my parents could see us both play at the same time. He was shortstop, I was first base. Okay. Even though I was little, I could jump up high, and I just did very well. Now, I actually didn't realize that I threw a ball with my left hand. That's what I did because I'm right-handed with everything else. But I would use my father's mitt, which was for a right-hander, catch the ball, take the mitt off, and then throw it with my left arm.
Oh, my goodness.
And so the coach finally, after a while, he gave me a glove that is for a left-hander. So
did your father ever get into it with other parents that were booing? Did he get upset? And was there any conflicts there?
Probably not like today's parents.
No. Well, back in 1950, it was a simpler time. It was only 5 years after World War II. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't think anyone would get away with what I got away with now. Back then, it was, the people were a little more naive and just weren't ready to sue at a drop of a hat.
Right. And parents probably didn't fight like they do today. They probably weren't as involved as they are now. They're always yelling.
Today's parents are more insane.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Si. Today's parents are more insane for sure. What I feel like I had. So you you got to throw out some first pitches, right? You threw out a first pitch at a Yankees game in
I threw
2016.
the first time I threw out. I got that. This sort of fun. Lance Van Auken, who was the vice president of Little League, called me. This is back in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, would you like to throw a first pitch out for the semifinal game in the World Series for Little League? And I said, yes, but I'd like to throw it out for the final game. He said, well, that's reserved for President Bush. I said, well, just change it.
Did they change it?
That was the first time I threw out a first pitch is for Little League World Series in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2000, I think it was 2006, Bank of America set it up so I can throw a first pitch out for the New York Yankees. They flew my husband and I out to New York.
Wow.
And put us up in a beautiful hotel there. We were there for about 3 days. I do a first pitch out for the Yankees. Unfortunately, it didn't get all the way to it was one bounce to the catcher's name was Jorge Posada.
Oh, yes.
And but I got a big hug from him, but I forgot to take the ball. I got the ball, but I never got it signed.
Oh, that's
And
great.
then,
Yeah.
After that, I threw a first pitch out for the Oakland Athletics. And there's a team in Sacramento called the River Cats. I've thrown a first pitch out a couple of times. And then when Little League had the 75th anniversary, I threw a first pitch out then too. So,
Wow.
and that was in 2017.
Wow. And that's not too long ago. So how old were you throwing a pitch out in your 80s throwing a pitch?
How old was I?
Hey, how old were you when you threw the pitch in 2017?
Well, let me see. I'm 84 now.
Old enough not to know better.
Are you? You know, I wouldn't even admit how old I was, except in the book that came out, as you see, I've got it here.
Yes.
Anybody's Game. The author is from Boston. The illustrator from Argentina.
Oh, wow.
When she came out, we went to 6 different schools, the museum and the library. It was an inspirational book. I love talking to both little boys and young girls, like what I did. They loved the book. And we thought we would be, selling she thought she'd sell about 50 of them. And so that's what she brought. We ended up signing around 600 books. Now, I don't get anything for the books. I just get the opportunity to inspire youngsters to dream big and go after that dream. And, don't let anything stop them, So
that's
anyway,
wonderful. That's so wonderful.
It's been quite a ride for me.
It has. And you look so young. I can't believe it. And I guess it's the pitching or the throwing out the first pitch that's keeping you young, because you look like you could pitch today at 84. That's unbelievable.
Oh, love it. I also was asked to give a presentation for the Pony League World Series at the Reagan Museum. I think that was back in 2010 too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, as I said, it's been an exciting, extraordinary ride for me. You ever see my twin sister?
No.
Yes. She's the one that called me, I think it was in 1974, and said, she and her husband are watching TV, and they were giving recognition to the first girl to play Little League, but it wasn't me.
Oh,
and she called me and she said, Kay, the sports director at this one TV station was giving credit to some other person for being the first girl to play Little League. She said, you played Little League 20 years before she did. I said, Mary, I really don't care. I've got a young family. I'm not going to steal her thunder. Just let her enjoy, the time. Then 25 years later, they were having the 25th anniversary of the first girl who played Little League. Now I thought she would be able to understand. So I called Little League with the help of my husband. We called Little League headquarters, and we told them about my being the first girl. And they said, well, what do you want us to do? And I said, just correct your records.
Yeah.
And then that's after that, 2001 is when things really started to happen. I even got a call from America's Most Wanted. And I thought, oh my gosh, they found out Little League wanted to do a movie. I also had a contact in 2002 from Disney that wanted to do a movie. It still hasn't been done, but it's going to be done.
Yeah.
I believe it is. They had a change of personnel at Disney, and even though the screenwriter, has done the writing for me, they weren't going to produce the movie because of some misunderstanding between the personnel and whatever. But now the Dick Cook Studios have the screenplay, and I think what they're planning on doing is selling it to Netflix.
Oh, it would be
And the name of the movie is called Who's on First?
Who's on First? Because you were the first baseman. That's great. That'll be a great movie. It's such an inspiring story. Thank you for taking the time. I'm so excited to meet you and to talk to you. I love, if you weren't you, it probably wouldn't have happened, and it probably wouldn't have inspired all these little girls. And
Thank you, Joe.
and
Okay, Joe,
yeah, thank you
so
both.
much.
Again, the book is Anybody's Game. Kathryn Johnston, the first girl to play Little League Baseball. Picture book from March 2018 by Heather Lang. And once again, there's more to this interview. If you want to hear the rest of Kay Johnston's endearing interview and more wonderful stories from our elders, please check out The Grand Project. It's wherever you can get podcasts, and then I'll put a link to the description in this episode. Thanks to Kitty Janvrin for agreeing to do this crossover, and thanks to Kay Johnston and Cy and Kathy. See you in 1951.